So today, basically going to practice some queries now. We've built our database, imported the data into the most precious data source ever, the Bible. Going to do some queries on the Bible database that we built. Because on your final, just for a reminder, we'll be practicing this some next week. Basically, the access part of the final, there will be 4 parts. There'll be Word, PowerPoint, short pieces, and then longer pieces of an Excel project and a Access project. In the Access project, you will be creating a table. Given something like, there's inventory of the company, they keep track of the inventory, they keep track of the description, the cost, the quantity on hand, and perhaps the vendor number. And in the vendor table, you keep track of the vendor's name, their address, and their phone number and website. You will be relating the 2 tables, putting some data into your tables, and then creating a few queries. And that's usually the most challenging part, having some tables and then querying the tables. And so today is query practice time. Even though in the textbook we've done some, we're going to do some queries on our own on the Bible database that you have. So let's get going. And the queries that you're being asked to do, if you want to work ahead, if you go over to Schoology and look at that assignment down there, the Bible database assignment, Access Bible Project. In there, these are the queries that we're going to be doing today. Make this, come on, send it, there we go. And I'll grease the size here. These are the queries we're going to be doing on the table. And we might be able to get to all of them. If we don't get to all of them, well, we'll be finishing them up on Monday. I think we'll be able to get to most of them. So, we have our database, we have our Bible text, and our first query is to build a query that lists all the verses containing the word Messiah. And I've given you on the criteria, well, the query should show the name of the book, the chapter and the verse, and then the text of the verse. So let's go get that database and see if we can build a query of all verses containing the word Messiah. So I go up to my database, open my recent database, the Bible database. Enabling content, sometimes you'll see this. Yes, I do want to work with this database. Let's just look at what we have in our table. We have our ASV Bible table. It has the verse ID, number, chapter, verse, and the text. Okay. The Net Bible, same thing. Text is a little different. Same column names, which is handy. And on our book name cross-reference, a book number and what name goes with that book. All right, so if I wanted to list all the verses of the Bible before even thinking about the criteria, let's build that query. Create, query design, and the table I want to see is the ASV Bible. In order to see the name of the book, I also need to add the book name and number. And because of the relationships between those tables, I know that they are related by book number. One way to look at this is whenever I look at a verse in the ASV Bible table, to know what name goes with that book, I can reference the book number the book name that goes with that number. So looking for the same record with that same book number and what name is in that table. This means they match. The book number matches book number. If that line weren't there, I'd have a query listing all the verses of the Bible and all books for every verse of the Bible. So now we want to see the book name, double click. The book number, no, not the book number, the chapter number, double click. The verse, and then the text of the verse. Without any criteria, I can now view the data selection or the result of that query, and I get all 31,102 verses of the Bible. But now I want the criteria. What was the criteria? Containing Messiah. So the first question is here, where do I put the criteria and what do I put? Where would I put criteria? Somebody help me out. what column would the criteria be under? If I'm looking for Messiah contained within the verse. The text column, right. And I could stretch out this text column because I know when I list it, I want to see the text. I could stretch it out here in the results. Okay. The criteria now. In the text, I have a prediction of what your first guess is going to be. You might get it right. Let's see. What would be the criteria be for the text containing Messiah?
I forgot. It would be something, could be using like.
Yes, you'd be using like. Yep. Keep going.
Like, and then the not parentheses, the quotation marks, Messiah.
Okay. Like, quotation mark, Messiah. You are very close. Let's see what we get. Uh-oh. There are no verses that contain Messiah. Do I have the wrong Bible? No. Just a little bit of problem. Anything could be before Messiah and anything could come after. So I have to put that old wild card in there. Remember, the wild card means there can be something before the word Messiah and something after. And since there's no space between me and the star, it could be other forms of the word Messiah, which I don't think there are very many. But remember, if there's a star around it, that text could be within anything. Let's see what we get. Can you guess how many there are? They're less than I expected. Only 2 verses in the ASV Bible contain the word Messiah. I was expecting some in the Old Testament, but maybe it's a different word they use, the anointed one, the coming one, the branch. Those are all other references, and from context we know that they were referring to the Messiah. But the actual word Messiah in ASV is only in 2 verses. Okay, so there it is, my first query, verses containing Messiah. So I come back to here, and I see the name of that query should be Q01 Messiah. So let's go ahead and come and save that now, Control S, save that as Q01 Messiah. Now, as we go along, we'll see that many of these queries are very much the same. I'm going to build another one from scratch, and then later on we'll do a save as. But let's do the next one from scratch by closing that one, and we'll come back to the next one, which is verses containing both the word promise and the word child. And we're going to call it Q02. So let's come back and now start from scratch this time. Query design. And now I'm getting used to it. I want to see ASV Bible, the book name and number, so I know the book name reference. And then in the results that I want to see the name of the book, the chapter number, the verse number, and the text of the verse. So just like the other query, but again, just practicing building it from scratch to build up my database skills here. And now, what criteria, I'm going to stretch out the criteria column because it's going to be a little longer. What criteria would go here? If I'm looking for a verse containing both the word promise and the word child, what would the criteria be? I'm going to take a great chance here. Anybody? I'll give you a clue. You don't have to type the word like. I'm not sure you even have to put the quotes in there. Let's try it. Like, or let's just type star, child, star, child. If I type star, child, star, and hit enter, it actually puts the like and the quotes around it for me. But that just means it has child in it. If I also, remember it's both, it's also the word promise. You might be tempted to put it on another line and have like promise here, but no, that would mean it contained the word child or the word promise. I have to put and here because 2 things have to be true. I have to type in the word and I'm going to try doing it without the quotes and see what it does, and then come back and fix it if it doesn't do it right. I'm going to put and star promise star. Let's see if it puts like and quotes around the word promise. Oh yeah, look at it, it does that for me. So You could do it with all the quotes, or let Access add them for you. It's safer to type it in just to make sure it gets it like you want. So remember what this is saying. It's the verse contains some form of the word child. Remember, it's not a space after the D, so it could be children or childless. Promises could also be in there. If I wanted just the words, I'd have to do something fancier, so we'll be happy with the form of the word child. Let's see what we get. How many do you think they're going to be? I'm guessing, well, I think it's around 10. Let's see what we had. Yeah, 8 verses in the ASV. Let's see what we had in the text by stretching out this height of my row here and see if indeed found the word child. Well, I see that first one. I found children. And where's the word promise? There. And promised. So remember, we had the star around it, so it found promised and not just the word promise. And it, depending on our search, that might be okay. Promised children. Here we have children and a promised past tense. Here we have promised past tense. Children. Child singular. Promised past tense. So I don't think there's any that have just the word child and promise. But if we want to, what we could do just for a test, we could put space around, put star space child, space star space promise, space star, and see if we get anything with the single word child and promise. And no, there are not any in the ASV with just the single word child. It's a form of the word child and a form of the word promise. So if you ever see star child, remember that would also, star child star will find every form of the word child, and star promise star will find every form of the word promise. Makes the results a little more interesting. 8 instead of 0. So you can imagine, if I want to be super meticulous, I would search for star child space star, so it may begin with the word child but not end with child. If the verse ended with promise, it would be promise, maybe promise period star, so it'll be at the end of a sentence or something. So it could be complicated. The form of the word is the easiest way. Now we're going to save this one as Q02 promise child. Since I started a new one, I can do a Control S and save that as Q02 dash promise child. And I'm hoping you're seeing, well, it's not that bad. As we get a little practice here, it's decent. Now just think about this in your other Bible programs. Typical search, even in Google search, it's an or between things. So let's just do a quick Google search and see what we get on Google. Looking for promise and child in anything out there on the internet. And we get 472 million results. When you do searches on Google, usually it's the or of any of those keywords. The ones that have both of them usually show first. If I want to have exactly both words, I could put a plus in front of each word, telling Google search that yes, that both those keywords have to be in my search results. And I think the search number will go down a bit. It runs down to 784 results. It has to have promise and child. If I want a specific phrase, promised child, in a Google search, I have to put quotes around it. And I don't have to have the plus in there anymore. But then I get 91,000 results have that exact phrase. So when you're doing searches in Access, you can kind of give you a hint at, that's how my internet searches are working. They're putting in criteria. Okay, so that one we saved as Q02 promised child. The next one is eternal. All verses containing eternal, but not the word life. So eternal, but not the word life. And since we'll go with form of the word eternal, but not the form of the word life. How many think there are? Let's find out. This time I'm just going to modify the one I have and then do a save as, not a Control S, because I don't want to wipe out what I have. So let's find what our criteria will be. Anyone want to give me a hand here? Contains the word eternal, but not the word life? Well, the word eternal, we could be star eternal, star. Star eternal, we've got to spell it right. And I'm going to skip the like part, knowing it will put it in there for me, or I'm hoping it'll put it in there for me correctly. How about not the word life? What would I put there? Well, there was going to be an and, because both things have to be true, has the word eternal. So I do need the word and there is the word not, and not star, life, star. Now let's see if it puts in the likes in where I expect it to be. I'm expecting to put like, quote, star eternal, and not like. Let's see if it does that, or if I have to fix it. Oh, look at that. It puts the quotes and the likes in there for me. You are welcome to type the like if you know that that's going to be your final result, but it will put it in there, probably in the right place. So if you want to be sure, you can spell that whole thing out. So remember what this is saying. It has a form of the word eternal in the text, and not a form of the word life. And I don't remember how many got. I don't think there's very many verses. Well, there's the eternal Father and things. Let's see how many. I'm thinking 20, was it? Let's see what we get. We get 28 verses that have a form of the word eternal, but not a form of the word life. Remember that the star, life, star means a form of the word. It could be life-giving, lives, plural. Those would all match star, life, star. Now, I don't think this is very easy to do in any Bible program. Even though you can do searching, I don't know that you can do anything even mildly complex, like one word and not some other word. You could try that and just see if it's possible. Most of the time in my searches, you're looking for keywords and it's all ordered together, where I might want to do something more special, like not having a particular word. Maybe there's a way. That's something that's worth looking into. And as you do more complex word studies, you might want that feature. But we know we can do it in Access. Now, this is going to be saved as Q03 eternal. But remember, we've modified the Q02 one. So we don't want to do a Control S. We want to do a File, Save As, and a Save Object As, because we're saving this particular query. And now a Save As Q03 dash eternal. And I hit OK. And now that query finds those 28 verses. So we're referring to something eternal that doesn't say specifically in the verse. We're talking about life. Here we're talking about eternal punishment, eternal destruction, the eternal temple, the eternal destruction, eternal times, something before the times. So, interesting way of looking at a particular subject. Now let's go to our next one. Trying to build them up, just give you some good practice. Oh, here we go, a whole different way. Chapter 3 and verse 16 of every book of the Bible. I knew a guy that actually studied, did a little fun study this way, just to kind of see how it would come out. And let's see what we would find. We'll go with this existing one, planning to do a Save As later. Well, the criteria is no longer on the text. Well, where would we put the criteria now? If we want chapter 3 and verse 16 of every verse in the Bible that is chapter 3, verse 16, what would we do with criteria? A little simpler this way. I just put a 3 in the chapter, and on the same line, because it's chapter 3 and verse 16, 16 in the verse. And I know that not all the books of the Bible have 3 chapters, so I'm not going to get 66 results. Let's see what we get. I think it was about 40 results. Let's see. No, 40, 50 or so. I get 49 that have chapter 3, verse 16. Now, as I study this, I see they're sort of coming. Oh, they're coming in sort of a random. Is it the order in the Bible? Let's make sure they come in the same order of the Bible. I think they are, but let's just make sure by going ascending. I need to have them listed by book number. Even though I don't need to see book number, I want them listed in the order of the Bible just to be sure. So I'm going to add book number to my criteria or to my query, and then sort ascending on book number, just to make sure they come out in the order in the Bible. And I don't need to see the book number, so I can unclick the show, even though book number doesn't really matter. This just makes sure I'm sorting it in the order they appear in the Bible. Most of the time, if I look at my table, I see that they're listed by book number ascending. Doesn't guarantee that every query is going to come out sorted, so it's good to put that in my query, sort by book number. And you can decide whether or not to see the book number, but sorting by book number is probably something we want to do. So I'm going to leave it in there as I save this query for other ones. Okay, chapter 3 and verse 16. We want to save this as Q04. So file, save as, save object as, save as, Q04 3:16. Will it allow a colon in my query name? Let's see if it allows that in my query name. Yes, it allows colons in the name of a query. So a specific chapter verse, same line, and I get that query. And by just practicing this, I'm hoping you're building up your confidence in your query building. Now let's list the verses of Psalm 23. I'm betting you can do this one pretty easily. Well, it's going to be chapter 23. Well, I don't need to put any criteria for the verse because I want to see them all. And I could put in either in the book name the word Psalms. And if I don't know how to spell Psalm, I can put PS star if I don't want to spell out. I don't remember if it's singular or plural. And if I know the book number, I can just say, well, just show me book number 19 if I wanted to go by book number. But since I have the book name there, I'm going to put criteria PS star. And let's make sure, well, we don't need to sort on book number. We would like to make sure that we're sorted ascending on the verse. This doesn't matter since there's only going to be one book. And there I get Psalm 23 nicely listed. And remember the criteria was chapter 23 of the book of Psalm. So I could either put like PS or just put Psalms. Psalm singular, right? Or is it Psalms plural? What is it? Oh, it must be Psalms plural. Yes, it's Psalms plural. When we refer to one chapter, we do refer to it as Psalm 23. But the name of the book is still Psalms plural. And this one is going to be saved as Q05. So remember to do a save as. Don't use that Control S and wipe out Q04. File, save as, save object as, and then a save as. Q05, Psalm 23. Q05, Psalm 23. Easy stuff. Just by practicing over and over again. First verse of every chapter in Mark. Perhaps that will serve as an outline for memory hook. The first verse of every chapter in the book of Mark. We're studying the book of Mark at Arbor Oaks. We're on chapter 16 this Sunday. Suppose I want to see the first verse of every chapter. Well, book name, Mark. Chapter, well, every chapter, so I delete that criteria. But verse number is going to be number 1. I am sorting it ascending on verse. Actually, I want to sort it ascending on chapter. So let's change that to ascending. Now it doesn't matter since it's only one verse. Sorting doesn't matter. So this will give it in the correct order. Let's see what happens if I don't sort on the chapter. Do they come in the correct order? Oh, look, chapter 9 for some reason comes first, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the others are sort of in order. Chapter 7 is out of order. So it does make a difference, even though I know in the table they're listed sequentially. Let's sort ascending so they come out in the order they're listed in the book of Mark. I can't explain why it would come out unsorted, even if it's sorted in the table. It probably has something to do with that primary key and how the computer is accessing the records. This tells it, give me the sorted results of the first verse of every chapter, and only one book has that name Mark. So I don't put like Mark, although like Mark would work because there's only one that's like Mark. Okay, and now let's save this as Q. Is it Q Mark? Q first verse Mark. So save as. Save object as. Q06. First verse Mark. Becoming query masters on the most precious data store we have. All right, what's their next query? Ooh, a little more challenging here. The list of books written by Paul. So we only want the book name listed. We only need to see the book name. But as we're developing the query, we can figure out, does something in the text indicate the book was written by Paul? All I want is a list of the book names. How might we do this? Let's ask ourselves a question. How do we know whether a book was written by Paul? Based on the text of the verse, can you tell it was written by Paul? Well, he probably mentioned himself somewhere, so let's put the word Paul in there for the text, or sorry, star Paul star. And let's see, verses that have the word Paul in there, oh, look at that. It's mostly the first verse of the book, except for Philemon, it mentions Paul. And 1 Corinthians in chapter 1 it mentions, but do you notice? Oh, there's others later on. In Acts, lots of mentions of the word Paul all over the place. But the first results we get show chapter 1, verse 1, he begins with his name in his greeting. So here's a clue in my query design. How about it's chapter 1, verse 1. If it contains the word Paul in chapter 1 and verse 1, let's see what we get. I get 13 books where Paul is actually the first word. So I didn't have to have star Paul star. I could have just Paul star. But just in case some other version that I may work with may have something in front of the word Paul, like I Paul or something, let's leave it as star Paul star. But and I actually am ascending by book number because that's left over from before. So they actually do, fortunately, list in the order they appear in the Bible. Let's see what happens if I don't have it sorting on book number. See if it comes out. Now it comes out in a funny order if I don't sort on book number, even though I know it's sorted in the original table. So let's keep that sort ascending on book number. Makes my results come out in biblical order. Now, this doesn't mean I'm authoritative on these being books written by Paul. There's that book of Hebrews that we're not sure about. Perhaps I could do some linguistic study on that. I'm sure people have, comparing the style to that of Paul, and I don't know what the conclusions are. I know many people think it was Paul, but some think, it's Barnabas. He says a lot of things very much I would think about Barnabas. We don't know. But here we at least have those where Paul says he's the writer in chapter 1 and verse 1. So if I don't care to see the text, and I only want the list of the books, I can come back here now and turn off showing the text. If I only want to see the name of the book, now I get the results with just the list of the books. But I know the criteria was chapter 1, verse 1 contains the word Paul. But this is my list without needing to show how I knew. Just by unchecking show that, it still means my query is still using all that criteria. I'm just not listing it in my results. And since that was the request of the query, just the list of the books, I suppose in parentheses I could have put only the book name only. Well, if you only want to see the book name, but you need those criteria in there, that's how you would do that. Use the criteria, don't show it in your results. And so we'll save that one as Q07 Pauline. File, save as, save object as, Q07-Pauline. Now this is something I'm pretty sure that you could not do in any of your Bible programs. I don't think any Bible program says search in the first verse of every book for a particular thing. But now you have the power to do that with just some basic knowledge of access in a Bible in this database form. Because with a database program, you can do more detailed searches and criteria. And because it's not so super simple to do this, those other Bible programs, they don't make that offering because it can be very confusing to people and they'd be answering help messages forever. But with a little bit of database knowledge, this is the data mining that we're doing. We're mining data out of the Bible by understanding a little bit about querying the information. And I'm telling you, people can make big money knowing about databases available out in the internet, and just even minor data mining skills like this, you can find where do I purchase my car from, or where do I need this part from to save the most money. And in companies that need lots of parts, they can save millions or if not billions of dollars by having someone that knows how to do data mining of available products and prices and commodities by learning just a little bit of where the data is. That's a huge skill, and also a little bit of query knowledge. So even if you're not going to be an access expert, you'll know this kind of capability is out there of through any information available on the internet. And you can hire someone or learn to do something like this yourself and enjoy it and help a lot of people. Okay, so let's build another query now. We've got the Pauline saved. All verses containing Lord. Back to a simple one. All verses containing Lord. Oh, easy peasy. I just look for text like star Lord star, and I'm not even going to type star Lord the like. I'm just going to put star Lord star. I don't have to put capital L because I know access is case insensitive, and I remove the other criteria, chapter verse 1 verse 1. I still wanted ascending on book number. Oh, and I realized, wait a minute, I wanted ascending. Yeah, I would want it ascending on chapter verse if I find it. And remember, the criteria for sorting goes left to right. I want book number to be the main criteria, so I'm going to click and drag that to the left of chapter and verse, so it is sorted in the proper way when I get results. And I do want to see the text, so I turn on the text. I do want to see the chapter and verse. I don't need to see the book number. Now I have the name, chapter, verse, sorted primarily on book number, then chapter and verse. And let's see, I'm thinking this is going to be a big number. I'm thinking 1,000. Let's see how many verses in the Bible out of the 31,000 have the word Lord in there, or form of the word Lord. And here we have 1,315. And sorted in biblical order, chapter and verse. If that's important, to have it in biblical order. If you only care about the count of it, it doesn't matter that you sorted it. But it makes it a little nicer to see them in the order, and you could skim through them. Confirming, yes, they have the word Lord in there. So there's my query design, and I want to save that as Q8 Lord. So, file, save as. Save object as. I can double click on save object as and type Q08-Lord. Hoping you're finding this as you practice more and more. This is getting easier. Not so confusing. Confusing at first is normal. That's because it is a new program and it's got powerful capabilities. But this whole list them in a column and show the tables up here, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense at first. Hoping it's making more sense now. Now, this one's a little more interesting. I'm thinking you know how to do this. It has to have all forms of the word in one verse: Father, Son, and Spirit. Let's see how many verses have all of those three words in the same verse. And I'm guessing you know that it would go right here in the criteria for text. I'm going to stretch that out because I know this is going to get long. I'm going to stretch out that column. And it's going to have like instead of like Lord. I'm just going to be, and I'm going to skip the like parts. I'm just going to put star, Father, star, and star, Son, star. I wonder if I don't type the word and. Do you think it'll put it in there for me? I'm going to try that just for fun. And Spirit. I'm going to skip typing the word and see if it will think I want it in there. Let's see what happens. Click off of it. Oh, it didn't put the and in there. It put Son, star, Spirit, star in quotes. So you do need to type the word and, or it won't know to put the like, star, or and like. I have to add the and like. So I think if I just put the word and, it would have put the likes in there for me. Oh, and I see a little typo there. I have an extra space there. That's going to mess it up. And like star, Spirit, star. So there it is. Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit listed in the same verse. Now we know that it may be verses really close together, but this will only show the verses that have it all in the same text. Can you guess how many there might be? Let's see. Only 2 verses. I was expecting a verse in Ephesians because I know they're close together, but apparently not in the same verse, at least in the ASV. And it isn't even mentioning exactly the Trinity, except for Matthew 28:19, the Go ye therefore, the Great Commission. Here it mentions the word Spirit, but it's the Spirit of His Son. And you might say, well, even though they capitalize Spirit, that's not, it's the same concept as Holy Spirit, but I think capitalizing it implies, yeah, we think they're referring to the Holy Spirit of His Son. But anyway, 2 verses that actually have those 3 all together. And we know if we did a search on the word Trinity, you would get 0 results. Trinity is not there. The idea of the Trinity is there, and this is perhaps a way to start building up a little study on the Trinity of, hey, there's only those 2 verses, and mainly Matthew 28:19, Jesus and the Great Commission mentioning them together as equal value, equal attributes. Of course, there's many more than one verses put together, phrases that will have that. And that's a whole other thing. Looking for phrases all mentioned in a chapter, that would be more complex. Okay, so this one we want to save as Q09 Trinity. And then we'll have one more, and we'll practice just a few more on Monday. Say save this as, file, save as, save object as, Q09 Trinity. Now one more gets a little bit more interesting, I think. We want the length of all verses longest first. And I did give you a clue down here. To find the length of something, I can use this function here, len, L-E-N, parenthesis, square bracket, text, square bracket, parenthesis. Let's see how I can use that as giving me the length of a verse. Let me show how that's done. back in the query. Again, we're going to look for all verses of the Bible so I can get rid of the criterion text. And I can shorten this so it's not taking up so much space. And I can add one more column here. I still want the sorting by book number, chapter, and verse. To see, oops. What did I have? Oh, I accidentally typed something. Didn't finish that deletion of all that. I can add another column. And I want to show you this important little calculator. I can right-click and start the builder of an expression. Think of this as my little function writer similar to Excel. And this shows me all the available functions. And I'm going to show you that here's how I found a function that deals with text. And here is a len function. Shows me that, hey, if I have a len parentheses something, it will show me the number of characters in a string, or the number of bytes required to store a variable. That's a little nerdy language there. Let's double click on len, and I see little symbols there around string. We want to replace that with square bracket text, square bracket. Remember, the text is referring to the column text in my table. I click OK, and I get X per 1 showing up here. Let's see what happens as I list this. Every verse in the Bible, I will see how long it is. And notice the top of the column listing is X per 1. Well, let's go back to our design. Let's change that X per 1 to be the word length. Length colon. That means length will be the title on my column. Now, I don't need to sort any longer by book number. I'm going to remove the sorting by clicking Not Sorted, and Not Sorted, because we want to list descending to get the longest verse first. So I can get the length of a verse by just putting length colon len parentheses square bracket text. In descending order will give me longest verse first. And can you guess what the longest verse in the Bible is? It's the verse in Esther, at least in the Authorized Standard Version, the verse of Esther, chapter 8, verse 9. 508 characters, and there's a way to count the words. We'll be looking at that on Monday. So before we forget, let's save this one as Q10-length. File save as, save object as, Q10 length. If I want to just see the shortest one first, I could change that to ascending, and I get Matthew 17:21. Has no text in it. Looks like there's a problem with that. Mark 15:28. There's another problem. We've got issues with some verses with just the text omitted in the Authorized Standard Version. And finally we get to John 11:35, Jesus wept. But if I reverse the order, longest verse descending, I find Esther chapter 8 verse 9. Trivia question that I don't know if I was ever asked as a kid. What's the longest verse of the Bible? And then you can memorize Esther 8 verse 9, and you can brag that you have memorized the longest verse of the Bible. Okay, we'll stop there. Save that. We'll be doing a little bit more on Monday just to give you plenty of practice, so you're just going to ace that query part of the final. Queries are probably the more challenging thing, giving you lots of practice on that. And I'm hoping this kind of search in the Bible makes it more kind of interesting for you. All right, have a great day. We'll save that there. I will upload this video in case you got confused by any part.